Hey, the purpose of this video is to introduce two others that I've already made, and that makes it seem kind of odd to have part one being made last of all, but it's really just scientific method. You have a hypothesis, and then you test it, and then you see what the results are and present them, and if you write it up, you begin your piece of writing already knowing how it's going to end up. Well, I did the testing in parts 2 and 3, and this is what I'm testing: the metal bat. I know that most of you guys watching this, if you had any intent of putting any of these suggestions into practice, you're going to have to do it with a metal bat. I kind of wish you wouldn't. I wish you could. I hope you can find a wooden bat somewhere. They are still available, but even when you find one, they tend to be created with the contours of a metal bat. So they're not going to look like the Deadball Era bats. They're going to have the thin, toothpicky-like handle and the big fat barrel, and it's not really very good for balance. And that's the challenge with the metal bat too, I find. You just don't get the same sense of balance. When you hold this thing the way that I've recommended, and you try to put that old school stroke on the ball, where you're just taking that hopefully direct line into the center of the ball, slightly downward. Your weight is shifting forward, so the swing really levels out. That's great, but this is just something about the balance in this thing, or the lack of balance. I can't find a way really to make this carry into the ball as straight as a wooden bat would. It's so light at this end, and it's so relatively heavy at this end, and yet it really has not much weight to it at all. Of course, this is kind of a standard 34 inches is actually longer than the standard, but 31, it's a drop 31 ounces is the weight. And this is about as good as it gets these days. And so what you're going to find in my first demonstration, part 2 of this series with the metal bat, is that I'm hitting more pop-ups than I would with a wooden bat. In my wooden bat demonstrations, I don't get those pop-ups to the extent. Some of them are carrying pretty well, and they might, on a ball field, they might be productive hits, but it still bothers me that I'm not able to get the proportion of low line drives. In the second demonstration, or part 3, I try something that's really weird, and it feels awkward to me, and it probably looks kind of awkward, but I take the ring finger of my bottom hand and I actually wrap it around the knob, and that's going to keep me from having as much flexibility. I don't know exactly what it does. Maybe it just makes me pull down more vigorously on the knob, but it seems as though, even as I look at the screen, and I'm doing this videoing right now, it seems like this is getting me a more direct cut into the ball than this is. It's like there's a slight dip here. I don't like the dip because it's giving me, as I say, too much of a good thing. I'm getting a little more backspin than I want. I want the low line drive, and in part 3 of the series, it's unfortunately cut short. It's a very small sample size because in one of my hits, I managed to hit such an effective low line drive that it went right at my camera and took it out. So I wish part 3 had been able to roll a little longer, but I do think that there's evidence that this is working a little better. It's a hack. It's a kind of a trick, and it deserves more exploration. I'm going to try to devise some more experiments as they occur to me. We've got to figure out a way to use these things, don't we? Because this is what we've got to work with. And the good news is that if you have that quick to the ball, short, crisp stroke with metal, and you make that contact, the ball's going to hop off of it, much more so than with a wooden bat. So you don't really have to have that swing out of your shoes stroke to drive the ball to the power alleys and get a double or a triple. So I'm optimistic about this. It turned out, the experiments actually turned out a little better than I thought they would. And surprisingly, I also found that right now I'm still working with, you can't see this from where I have the camera, but I'm taking the little forward, the shuffle step as I call it, to set up. I'm having to really work on keeping the barrel in front of me too. It's another question of balance. I'm gonna, if I do what I would usually do and maybe bring the bat back a little farther with one of my 35-inch wooden bats, if I tried to do that with this, I just can't stay poised and ready to go at the ball. I can't get my balance. This is so light that I have to, maybe that's part of why putting this ring finger on the knob works too, is because it really doesn't feel comfortable if I come way back there. Maybe it's a way of making me keep the bat forward. I got to do that to get my balance. And that's one of the things that I've found very challenging. But hey, if you keep doing experiments and processing your results and coming up with new ideas to test, that's how you move forward. And I think we're moving forward with this. One last thing, you may have noticed that I have duct tape all around this bat. Probably not recommended in most circumstances, but you know what, I don't like that really sticky adhesive tape that the handle is, the manufacturer wraps the handle with when you see it on the shelf and you buy it. It doesn't give my hands the ability to move around that I would like them to have. So I want this to be kind of not slick exactly, but I don't want it sticking to my fingers. The swing today, and this isn't the time really to get into this, but of course you don't, with your thumbs wrapped around the handle, the swing today doesn't want the hands to move at all. So guys even put on batting gloves in addition to having this tape, and that handle's not going anywhere in their hands. And they're going to release with the top hand, and the bottom hand is just going to carry that club right through. Boy, you can tell that the head is really going to dip when I make contact too, if I can make contact. See, I'm working against all of those things, trying to go straight into the ball, and I actually want my hands to have some flexibility. So the tape helps me get a little bit of a roll through my fingers there. So let's proceed to part two, which has the hands, the bottom hand especially is the big difference here, and then part three is when I try that very daring kind of grip of the ring finger around the knob of the bat.